Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. It's quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
Happy Collision Saturday, as I realized I forgot to put my Winged Eagle intro in. Whoops. Oh well, no big deal. How are you guys doing? It's going to be a big weekend, and it's going to be a big night. Double header on the channel tonight. Back-to-back live streams. We're going to do this podcast here, and I'm going to try to limit it to about 90 minutes. And after that, we're going to be back. I'm going to take a quick little break, have a little sandwich, and then we're going to come back and watch tonight's AEW Collision debut show on TNT together. The link to that video is already up on my channel, so hopefully you guys can join us for all of this here. This is going to be a podcast like normal, but we're just going to kind of limit it a little bit on the wrestling results and things like that, kind of brush through some of SmackDown last night since half the show was the gauntlet match, you know, just kind of glance over Raw a little bit. But I do want to focus a little bit on this past Wednesday's amazing AEW Dynamite, which was absolutely fantastic. Plus, we're going to talk a lot about one of the best endings to a WWE show in modern history. The ending to last night's SmackDown with the Bloodline crumbling and Jey Uso finally making his decision was one of the most well-executed angles and storylines of all time. This was 3 years in the making, and it just keeps going. It was like a plot twist within a twist, and now it is set for Money in the Bank. The Usos will be taking on Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa in a Bloodline Civil War, so we'll talk a lot about that. And ESPN did an interview with CM Punk speaking on the record for the first time since Brawl Out ahead of his debut, or his return tonight, I should say, in AEW. And there was a lot of information, interesting stuff coming out of that interview. Even before it was released, a lot of speculation that shit that was said in there might ruffle some feathers. So we'll detail that interview. There were some interesting tidbits in there, but it wasn't any sort of earth-shattering or groundbreaking interview or anything like that. Punk didn't get too controversial, but there definitely were some interesting things in there regarding All Out, regarding the scrum, and everything that transpired last year. So we're going to take a look at that. Talk about WWE's TV rights negotiations, which apparently are coming up. Carlito has been pulled from some indie events under speculation that he might be signing with WWE. If he does, it will be their first hire of 2023. Like I said, we'll look a little bit back at this week's Raw and preview this week's Raw, because we have a couple of interesting matches on there, including Trish in a Money in the Bank qualifier, and apparently Logan Paul is going to show up. That's a little nerve-wracking. We'll talk about some ratings, and like I said, we'll talk about SmackDown, Dynamite, maybe a little bit of Rampage, but probably not much. And we will preview Money in the Bank and Forbidden Door. Both cards not looking too shabby. I don't know why everybody's complaining about Cody and Dominic. That's like my favorite match of both pay-per-views so far. And Forbidden Door has got some doozies on there. Let me tell you. So we better get into it here and get going. Hope you guys are having a great day. Do me a favor, please smash that thumbs up button for me. And if you are not a subscriber, I would love it if you would consider clicking that subscribe button. We are on the road to 40,000 subscribers. Should be there pretty soon, as long as you guys tell all your friends and all your moms. So make sure you do that for me and tell them to subscribe over here to Good Mic Work Commentaries. In the meantime, thumbs up buttons, all that stuff is a big help. If you would like to become a member, you can do so. Details below. And by popular request, or by popular demand, I should say, I got a few DMs lately asking me if I was going to ever bring back like the donation streams and the donation reviews and things like that. So I do have details in the description on how to do that. We're going to do this all here on YouTube now. It used to be done PayPal and Patreon and all that shit. Everything here is just going to be super chat. So if you are interested in donating to have your own sponsored video or review or top 10 or watch along or anything like that done specifically for you, if you have any socials, or if you have a YouTube channel, or if you have anything you want to promote, I'll be happy to promote that for you there. Otherwise, if it's just a friendship donation, then I'll give you all the love in the world, and we'll get back to doing that. When we did it before, I think I've done at least 20 of these type of videos. So if you are interested, details are below, but that's only for those really interested in supporting the channel in this way. There is no pressure. There's no obligation. Don't even sweat it if it's not something you're interested in. Greg just is happy for your subscription at the end of the day. Also, want to let you guys know what to expect tomorrow. Big watch along planned on the channel tomorrow. WWE Money in the Bank 2011. CM Punk, John Cena, Chicago. What a night. What a crazy match. I was less than a year basically into doing YouTube when that match happened. Really wasn't even taking it seriously. I don't even think I was making videos at the time until that match went down. And I think I came up and posted a little 10-minute clip on it or something like that. That was a crazy time back in 2011. And I usually don't do watch-alongs from shows in like the modern era, but that's a pretty big one. And since CM Punk makes his return tonight, I figured that would be a pretty appropriate watch along to do tomorrow. So that link is in the description below, and it's also on the channel in the latest content tab. So keep a lookout for all of that. It's going to be a shebang of a weekend. I just want to make sure I can be heard and seen and all of that kind of stuff. Let's cruise real quick over to the channel members, and I want to thank each and every one of you guys. By the way, all those donation reviews that I just mentioned, or those donation options below, all channel members of 3 months or longer get $50 off all those deals. So keep a lookout down below for that. Jacob Miller, I want to thank you and welcome you to the family. You've been here for 5 days. 5-star, Denny Down Bad, 951 Dave, the Script Keeper, Antoine Fair, Hector, Sean Okoye, Christian. I'm just going to call you Christian because I brutalize your name every time. Brandon McNeil, M.H. Nova, Ben Espinoza, Lee T, Alex, Brian, Elizabeth, Jay Lambo, Sonic Plays, Stone Cold, James Williams, good to see you, my friend, Super Fluffy Toaster, Chris Ludek, Anthony Matisse, Leo Whalen, Big Mike, ATP, Queasy, Mike, Motown Slim, Ken Webb, Titanium Titan, Josiah Blevins, MJ Parker, Ramon Coffey, Ruben Litton, Fox Star Killer, The Juliet, Bitso, Alan Carter, Stephen Taylor, Ian Dunn, Jordan Carg, Financial Truth Academy, Devlin Husband, Red Raven Rucker, Michael Tong, Ian Dunn, Chaz, Longboard, Kevin, Jeff, Mikey, Colton, Luke, Tar Brehan, Zelius Ward, William, Bo, Cav Lovick, Ian, Al Ramos, Zach H., Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Jimmy Anderson, C. Mac, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, How Wheezy, Spaz, Jessica, Ronnie, Nicole. Oh, Ronnie, good to see you, man. Dashawn Robinson, Marcus the Entertainer, Nikita Abalakin, Divine Ricks, Zane G, Zach Palgett, Chris Barrera, Anthony, John J.E. Dennett, Michael Kumo, Tatanani, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, good to see you, Kevin, Max Pokebra, Spectra, Reese Jones, Victor Cologne, Isaac, George Morris, Population 420, and the OG, JJ Leg. Thank you, as always, guys, for being channel members. If we just get a couple of more, that's going to put us over 100, and then I'm just going to limit it to the shout-outs to maybe the members that have been with us the longest. So we're getting very close to changing that up. A few more channel members ought to do it. Thank you again to everybody that supports on Patreon as well. Don't have my patrons pulled up at the moment, but there will be a new video hitting Patreon and available to channel members tonight or tomorrow morning. So keep a lookout for that. And we should be back here for a members only watch along within the next week. I'm looking at 1 week from tomorrow, the same day as Forbidden Door, prior to Forbidden Door. Might have Elizabeth join me for that one. If that's a scheduling conflict that doesn't work for her, or scheduling that doesn't work for her, I'll come up and do something myself, but I owe you guys a members only, so I'll think about that this week, and we'll schedule that probably for next Sunday, unless I'm forgetting something important about next week that makes me unable to do it. But that is my plan, at least internally in my head. So that should knock out all the nonsense there in terms of what you can expect, but I do owe you guys some shout-outs from the chat. Good to see all of the members here, like K-Dogs, Kennel, Kevin. Very good to see you, my friend. Let's just knock out the channel members. Isaac is here, the Juliet. Oh, actually, we have other friends. I want to say hi to everybody. Stephen Jacobson, good to see you. William Cullen. David Brown is here from Spain, watching from Spain on vacation. Hell yeah, man. You guys are dedicated. Crazy. J26, good to see you. Brandon McNeil in the house. JL, Ratnick, Tatanati, Odyssey, E-Man84. Happy Collision Day. Sonic Plays, Red Raven Rucker, and Ben Espinoza, some more channel members. We got Rodrigo in the house. Martin, my friend from the UK, good to see you, buddy. Brandon Pengali is here. What's up? Luke McAllister chiming in with a nice, generous $10 drop. What's up, Greg? Can't wait for Collision, though I'll wait until tomorrow since it starts at 1 a.m. here in Scotland, and I'm not a night owl. Also, Bloodline story is awesome. Hope it ends well. I do too. I think they're doing this right. I mean, we've debated a little bit, the Sammy stuff, the Cody stuff. There's so many great options to take the title off of Roman. A lot of people now think it's going to be Jey. I do not think it's going to be Jey at the end of the day, but they're making stars out of Jey. They're making stars out of Jimmy Uso, and they're making a star out of Solo Sikoa. This is one of the best stories that WWE has ever done, and it just goes to show you how quickly things can change. If you look at some of WWE's pay-per-view numbers or ratings, or especially attendance numbers, specifically the show from last night in Kentucky. I think they were at the the Freedom Hall or where that building they always run in Kentucky. Sean Ross Sapp went to the show last night. He was in the the second row, and he posted some ticket sales from that event compared to 1 year ago. 1 year ago, this same time, like on a SmackDown show, they drew like 3,000 people. They pulled in like 10,000 last night for that show, like nearly 10,000. Over 9, whatever it was. Like, that's an incredible increase, and the ratings have been high. SmackDown last night did like a 2.4 million rating. They have had excellent ratings on SmackDown, largely in part due to the network they're on, but also because of how good that Bloodline story is. And when you see how badly things were for WWE ratings-wise, fan attendance, just fan interest overall, 1 to 2 years ago was not so good. And it just goes to show you how things can change in an instant for either company. We've seen ebbs and flows for both AEW and WWE, and it feels like now AEW is a little bit in the mud, and WWE's the ones that are soaring. But look at why. It's because they found something that worked, and they ran with it and didn't fuck it up. How many times in WWE's history have they literally been handed a golden opportunity? This is it. This is your chance to print money. And Vince fucks it up, or they fumble the opportunity, they screw it up. We could sit here for probably 3 hours and list examples of that. But the Bloodline is one that they've actually done really well, even through some of their perceived missteps by the fans, the angle and the storyline has still remained compelling and interesting and very intriguing. And it's a lot of people like to use cinema. I don't like to use that because I think wrestlers are the worst fucking actors in the world. What they're doing is great. Last night's segment was executed and performed and acted very well, but let's not get ahead of ourselves with that cinema stuff. But it was fantastic. And I think that with AEW and WWE, sometimes that's all it takes. All you have to do is fall ass backwards into something that works really well and you can run with it. So at any given day, the same exact thing can happen to AEW. It happened to WCW. Those monkeys had no fucking clue what they were doing, but the NWO thing just worked. Because when Hall and Nash got signed by WCW and you knew they were going to be making the jump, there was no guarantee in the fans' minds that that was going to be a big deal. Nobody even had a clue what they were going to do when they got there. We just thought WCW would put a new gimmick on them or whatever because they couldn't use Razor and Diesel and they would just be wrestlers over there. But when they did that angle exploded and changed the wrestling business. So it can happen at any time. So all the tribal ass monkeys that like to jump on WWE when they're down or jump on AEW then when they're down, oh, they're in the mud, they're going to go out of business. All it takes is one angle, one storyline, one wrestler to get ridiculously over. And sometimes that's all you need. And that could change in an instant any day. Tonight on Collision could be the beginning of what a wrestling angle that changes the wrestling business. Is that likely to happen? No. But could it? Yes. So, it's kind of how fragile everything is. Sometimes it just takes one good angle, one good storyline, or somebody getting over to an insane degree like Austin or like the NWO to really change the direction of a company and the business they're doing. So, the Bloodline is a great example of that, and I credit them for a lot of the good numbers and the attendance that WWE has been doing. And I like Roman Reigns kind of having, the Hogan vibe. This is going to be, the third pay-per-view that he hasn't defended the title on, or I think this year or something like that, but Hogan used to do that. He didn't defend the title all the time. He was in tag matches at SummerSlams and shit like that. So I like that Roman is still kept as a big deal. The one thing I don't like, though, is the fact that Paul Heyman came out last night with the other two belts. So Roman still has the 3 belts, which really, really bothers me. But let's not nitpick. The storyline and the angle last night was too good for me to be complaining about shit like that. We've got Tribal Chief, thanks for the $5, dude. Hey, Greg, thanks for all this amazing content tonight. SmackDown was cinema. Sorry for just shitting on the cinema idea there. How do you feel about Usos versus Solo and Roman? I'm excited. What about you? Yeah, that was the match I figured we were going to get when Jimmy kicked Roman. I'm like, oh, it's probably going to be Usos against Roman and Solo. That's what we're getting now. I'm fine with that because now that we have technically a second world championship held by Seth Rollins, I really don't care if Roman defends the belt on every pay-per-view or not. Don't care. If he defends it 2 or 3 times a year on pay-per-view and that's it, good. I'm into a change of pace. It's been the same shit for the past 25 years. Let's change it up and do some stuff different. I got no issue with that. Steven Jacobson, good to see you. JL, I'm not sure if I got you. Nick Musser is here. So is Max Pokebro. Hope you're doing well too, my friend. Let me see. Knock out all these super chats and hellos and then we'll move on. ABJ, good to see you as well. We've got Andy Linnell and Doug Unfunny in the house. And who else? Sir Wilson, good to see you. Jordan Smith has got $5 for us. Did you see Dark Side of the Ring this week? I had no idea how sad the Graham story is. 4 generations of suicide. Unreal next week, original doink. I did watch it and I forgot to write notes about it. So when I talk about it later, I'm going to have to mention mostly this by memory. I thank you for reminding me about that. I knew there was something. I was making my notes so hastily. I knew there was something I was forgetting. Let me just make a little note of that so I can hit that later. But yeah, that was one of the hardest episodes I've seen, and we've seen some bad ones on Dark Side of the Ring, but I only knew probably about 75% of that story. I knew Eddie's story. I was a big Eddie Graham fan, big fan of Florida Championship Wrestling. Well, love watching old tapes and old Dusty matches and shit like that from that territory because of how hot it was during that time. And always liked learning about the history of Eddie Graham in Florida. And I knew about Mike and all of his problems, and I knew there was suicide ran in the family. I did not know about the brother. And the poor daughter, Nicole, who really seems like a beacon of strength. What an amazing woman to live through all that. And she really, you feel confident when you hear her talk because, much like the Von Erichs, you have to wonder, could she head down this road since the entire family? That's a lot of weight to carry in one's mind. And could she succumb to this too? But she really seems like she has peace of mind, which seemed to be the theme through that whole episode, but that was one of the harder ones, especially about the brother, and the fact that she had to find him. So this poor woman has had to watch her grandfather, father, and brother all kill themselves right in front of her, and that's rough, man. That I wasn't expecting the episode to be that gnarly. I knew the Graham story was bad, but I didn't know about the 5 generations. I think I only knew about Eddie and Mike, and I think I knew about Eddie's dad. I did know about the 3, but no idea about the brother and then the other one. So there was a 5th one, and that's just nuts. My God. And the next one on Doink is going to be pretty interesting because Matt Bourne was completely fucking nuts. And that one's going to be good, I believe, next Tuesday. So, yeah, thanks for the reminder on the dark side of the ring. We'll get back to that if we have time today. Otherwise, I'll try to talk a little bit more about it in upcoming episodes. Why don't we start with CM Punk? Because in just a couple of hours, AEW Collision debuts on TNT. If you're just tuning in now, I mentioned earlier, we are going to be watching that together. As soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to take a quick little break, have a sandwich, and then we're going to regroup and watch Collision together. The link is up on the channel right now if you want to save it for later. And we're going to watch whatever happens tonight on AEW Collision. Tony Khan has secured Elton John's Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting as the theme song. They even released the intro, and it looks pretty good. Props to Tony Khan for paying for music. WWE sometimes gives us real music too, but goddamn, they've been shoving Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock and Nickelback and that whiny metal genre that opened every pay-per-view and Florida Georgia Line and all. So some fans complain about Tarzan Boy and Jefferson Starship and and maybe even Elton John. Who would complain about Elton John? I love Elton John. I love Madonna. So I think it's cool that they used that song. It looked really good. It was a good looking opening, and just opening song isn't going to make or break a wrestling show. What makes or break it is what we see in the 2 hours they're on television. And hopefully tonight's card will be good because it's pretty stacked, and CM Punk is returning to the ring. The card, where did I put it? Just to let you guys know what we're going to see in a little bit. We've got. By the way, I should also mention this before we talk about the card. The announce team for Collision is a great one. It's Jim Ross. By the way, Jim Ross, thinking about you. Homeboy took another spill today. Black eye. He's been falling a lot and busting his face to shit. And I worry about Jim Ross, getting up there in age. My grandmother, both of my grandmothers were like that. They were falling all the time when they got into their 80s and stuff, and they were constantly bruising themselves up. And it was so sad to see them constantly fall and injure themselves like that. And Jim Ross has done this like 3 or 4 times just in the last couple of years. So he's sporting a pretty gnarly shiner there for his first night on commentary with his commentary partners of Nigel McGuinness and Kevin Kelly. How cool is it that Kevin Kelly is back here announcing television here in the good old USA? He does the American commentary for New Japan, and he's been doing that quite some time. And him and Jim Ross used to work together back in the day. Matter of fact, Kevin Kelly was on commentary with Jim Ross the night that Jim Ross brought back the fake Razor and the fake Diesel to WWE way back in 1996, which was, 27 years ago now? My God. So Kevin Kelly and Jim Ross back together kind of made me mark out a little bit. And I'm also a massive Nigel McGuinness fan. Saw him at WrestleCon doing some magic. I guess he's like a magician now. So that's kind of cool. Also, Fightful reported today that Chris Hero is in town and apparently is backstage at AEW Collision. Maybe they're going to bring him in as some sort of a creative role or a coaching role or something like that. But according to Fightful, he is there or in town, apparently. So maybe Chris Hero is about to come in. He would be an excellent hire, and I know him and CM Punk are pretty good buddies, which would make sense. The card tonight for Collision is Wardlow defending his TNT title against the Lucha Man, Luchasaurus, or the Lucha Dinosaur. We got Buddy Murphy and Andrade, which should just be a sexy battle. We have Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale facing Tony Storm and Ruby Soho. How good was that Sky Blue and Tony Storm championship match on Wednesday? Wow, that was good. We have Miro returning tonight as well. And in the main event, it's CM Punk and FTR taking on the Triple J. Jay, Juice, and Joe. It's going to be a good one. Like I said, join us later on tonight for that. Let's start with CM Punk. CM Punk spoke for the first time on the record about everything that transpired last year at All Out in the Scrum and what led up to it, and what his plans are for the future. Now, you can read this interview on your own. The only thing we're going to talk about here and the only quotes I'm going to read is about the drama. He also spoke a lot about what he wants to see happen with Collision, and how it's time for a lot of guys to step up and for this to be a big deal for AEW and AEW's future and his future and the future of a lot of wrestlers in the company. But when it comes to talking about everything that went down between him and the Elite, that's what we were really the most interested in. Now, before this interview even came out, a couple of days ago, it was reported, Wade Keller is the one that started all this. Wade Keller reported that Punk did an interview, and whatever he said in this interview, the comments were probably going to upset some people backstage in AEW. Word got back to them about a few things that Punk said, and before this interview even comes out, there's reports all over the place, all over the internet. Twitter's talking about it, about what Punk said, and how here we are just a couple of days away from Collision, AEW trying to move towards a resolution to all of this, and even more shit is being stirred up. But it sounded more like Wade Keller was being fed information by somebody else, or, maybe they heard something that wasn't, quite true. But what this told us is that even though Wade Keller said a whole lot of nothing, this showed us that there really still isn't any resolution yet between Punk and the Elite. And I just can't believe that grown-ass men making millions of dollars working for a company like this have not figured this shit out yet. And some of Punk's comments here in the interview, which was conducted by Mark Raimondi of ESPN, he went into a lot of that. So when it comes to the Elite division, I'm going to read a little bit of the article here and then some of what Punk said. The article goes on to say, in Punk's mind, the division started sometime in spring of 2022. Previously, he said he felt as if he had a solid relationship with the group, including approaching Omega to ensure nothing Punk was doing in his matches would infringe on what spots Omega had planned, and checking in on Hangman Page when he was sick with COVID-19. On May 25th, 2022, Punk and Page were booked for a promo segment in the ring on Dynamite. Page was the AEW champion then, and Punk would be his challenger at the next pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, which I attended. Punk said he and Page discussed backstage before the segment what they would say, much as Punk said he did for similar segments in the past with wrestlers such as MJF and Eddie Kingston. But when they got into the ring, according to Punk, Page strayed away from what they had agreed on. You talk a big game about workers' rights, Page said on television. Well, you've shown the exact opposite since you got here. I love this place. I care about this place. This is my home. And this Sunday at Double or Nothing, I will not be defending this championship against you. No, for the first time in my life, I'll be defending All Elite Wrestling from you. It was a bit confusing to most fans, especially the first part, since Punk's character was a babyface, as was Page's. But to the naked ear, it just sounded like pro wrestling trash talk and part of the story. Punk said it was not that and confronted Page about it when they returned backstage. According to Punk, Page told him he said what he did because Punk had AEW wrestler and coach Colt Cabana fired from the company, or at least tried to. Punk and Cabana have had a very public falling out years ago before Punk arrived in AEW that included multiple lawsuits. Punk said he told Page that was not true and that Cabana still worked for the company. So we've heard that before, and like we've talked about in that workers' rights promo before, some of what Hangman Page said there is no worse or no more out of line than anything that was said in those MJF and Eddie Kingston promos. My God, some of those were brutal. But I think the issue here is that was not discussed. Punk's beef is that Hangman didn't tell him this, and he kind of hit him with it out of the blue. Maybe if they talked about this backstage, it would have been a problem. Who knows? So he goes on to say, this is Punk talking here. He says, and I proceed to have what I think is a guard. And this is regarding Double or Nothing, by the way. And there was a lot of clips about this going online yesterday, too. Specifically, one chop that Hangman hit Punk with right in the face, which when, if you're watching it, doesn't look like it was intentional at all, but Punk wasn't sure. Here's what he said about that. And I proceed to have what I think is a garbage match because I'm trying to protect myself on stuff instead of actually just working and trying to put on the best performance I can. I'm keeping an eye out. He chopped me in the mouth one time, and I'm like, okay, did you do that on purpose? You chipped my tooth, and I'm like, all right, should I give him a receipt? It changes the dynamic. It poisoned everything for me, and it made it all really, really ugly, and that was what set all of this off. And here we are over a year later, and ain't shit been done about it. So Punk has got a point there. This is where I kind of agree with Punk on some terms when none of these things have been resolved yet, and all of this time has gone by. And I guess Punk has attempted to reach out to Omega and the Bucks, and he's been receiving messages from lawyers, do not contact these people. Hangman Page apparently does not have any rules against speaking about this. He just chooses not to. He is ignoring this entire thing for whatever reason. Now, when you think about the chop, Punk wondering if Hangman Page was shooting on him, I don't know, but in my heart of hearts, I would say no. I also think it's funny that former UFC fighter CM Punk is worried about somebody shooting on him or whatever. And I'm like, Brock Lesnar handles a guy hitting him too hard a lot differently than CM Punk. Remember when Braun Strowman tagged him and Brock, dropped him with a fucking 3-piece and yelled at him, he goes, slow down. And if Punk really got hit in the head, I mean, Punk's MMA training should be able to take down Hangman Page, right? But as I said, even last year when this whole thing started and we were talking about the Hangman Page and Punk beef, I said even back in like October, I'm like, I'm not convinced at all that CM Punk could beat Hangman Page in a fight. I'm not sure if CM Punk could beat anyone in a fight for that matter. And that's even with his MMA experience. So if there was an actual shoot between these two guys, I wouldn't put all my money on Punk with or without his training. But I did find it funny that, he was worried about, if Hangman was shooting on him. But I do understand what he's saying about it changing the dynamic of the match. If something like that happens and you're in the heat of the moment and it's a live crowd and you don't know what the intention is, was that on purpose? Maybe, another way you could look at this is not Punk being a pussy, where Brock, took down somebody who hit him too hard. That's one way to look at it, but it might not be totally accurate. As somebody pointed out to me yesterday, it could be also Punk not sure if he should reseat this guy. If it was an accident, he doesn't deserve a receipt. Maybe he deserves one down the line, but, maybe not one right here. We need to continue the match. And when you're not sure about that and you're not sure if you should go off script yourself, and start tagging him back, and then the whole match could break down into something really ugly, and you're on pay-per-view in front of millions of eyeballs, that's a whole different thing. So I can understand Punk's hesitation. Oh, okay, if we're going to go here, all I need to know is if we are or not, and then I'll act accordingly. But, he wouldn't, even Bret Hart, after the screw job, he even said, he goes, even though I knew Shawn was in on it, I didn't want to react on him and beat the piss out of him, only to find out a couple of days later that I was wrong. And he had nothing to do with it. He was, even though I knew that he did, I couldn't be sure. And if I would have assaulted him or physically injured him in some way, I would have never been able to live with myself. And, maybe that's another way that Punk is looking at this. And that's very possible. So I'm trying to be as fair about this to all parties as possible. If you ask me, Samoa Joe is the one that's had the best take on all of this. I don't have his tweet written down. But he basically said, or I think it was an interview where he was asked about this, and he basically just said in so many words, the gist of what he said, even though it's not a direct quote, was that it has nothing to do with me. They're all grown-ass men, and they will figure it out. And they need to figure, that's it, just, I don't have beef with anybody involved here. It's not my problem. It's not my issue. It's their issue. They're grown men. They can handle it. And that's probably the best take I've seen yet. Just fucking handle it. And apparently that is something that Punk wants to do, sit down, have a big powwow or whatever, but it hasn't been able to happen yet. And we've heard the reports, it's been confirmed multiple times that CM Punk and Kenny Omega had a very calm conversation just minutes after the brawl happened, because they really have not had any issue with each other and they were trying to talk it out after. So, it seems like their beef really wasn't, might have even been settled right there. It was, maybe Punk's impression that they were, feeding news to the dirt sheets, spreading lies about Punk. That's how all of this stuff started. We don't really know, any validity to that. All we know is there's a bunch of guys here who aren't getting along, and it's been nearly a year now and they still haven't figured it out. So what can you do? Regarding the scrum, Punk said he had regrets about what transpired in that media scrum and has since apologized to Tony Khan for it. He said his and Tony Khan's relationship is great now. So that's good. Punk goes on to say, the first thing I said to Tony when I sat down with him and spoke to him after it was, man, I'm really sorry I put you in that position. I apologize for the scrum, but when you've watched that scrum, you're looking at a very, very frustrated guy who had told people that's not the first time he heard all that. It's not the first time lawyers were told all that. And I was just looking for something to be done and nothing got done. So basically, it sounds like Punk wanted something to be done about the Hangman promo, the workers' rights promo. He felt like Hangman went off script. They didn't talk about it, and he deserved to be punished, even to the point where maybe lawyers were going to get involved in this, which I feel like it shouldn't be taken to that degree. But yeah, maybe that should have been discussed, worked out. This could be a factor of some of the leadership issues that Tony Khan is going to have. And he's had so far, and these are things that are going to have to get better if AEW wants to get better. And with Tony Khan's leadership, maybe somebody else. And I'm not saying Tony Khan is a complete inept leader. This is a guy that still owns multiple franchises and does a lot of stuff. He doesn't sit on his ass and just spend daddy's money all day, for the tribal idiots who actually think that. This guy does know what he's doing. He's very smart. He works hard, and he can run shit. But he is dealing with personalities that he's never had to deal with before. It's easier to deal with professional athletes than it is with professional wrestlers. So this is probably all new to him, but might point to some of his shortcomings in the leadership department. And maybe he does need somebody a little bit more intimidating. One thing about Vince McMahon is, even though he was surrounded by a lot of people much bigger than him, he was intimidating. He scared people. I don't know if Tony Khan scares anyone. And that's not necessarily a good thing. I hate tyrants. I used to work for a boss that really enjoyed putting fear in his employees. And I found that to be so shitty, because you don't have to be a sociopath. You can actually be a good person, a kind person who appreciates the people who work for him and that type of thing, and still find success. I always liked coaches like in the NFL, like Tony Dungy, who didn't have to yell and scream and be a complete fucking maniac, but he got the job done because, he was kind and reserved and, a little more calm and level-headed and shit like that. So I'd much prefer that type of boss over a Vince or over some sort of crazy person. But if you had that personality in charge and installed there as, the leader behind the scenes, then maybe some of this stuff would have gotten worked out. Maybe to grabbed all these guys and chucked them in a room. Work it out. Don't leave till you do, or you're all fired. Shut the door, lock it, put a chair in front of it, and just text me when you're done. That sort of thing. Just some no-nonsense motherfucker, instead of trying to tap dance and pussyfoot around everybody's feelings. But you can't just chalk it up to that either, because Tony Khan also wants to keep these guys around in the company. So if he takes a side, or he's more on one side than the other, or he punishes guys too strongly, then they might say, fine, when my contract's up, I'm out of here. Remember how Vince flipped out on Batista and Jericho for blading, and he made this big fucking ordeal and fined him and got them all in trouble? There was nowhere for them to go. WWE was the only game in town. You think Batista's going to go to TNA? Get the fuck out of here. So those guys knew that's where their bread was buttered. That's where their job is going to be. And if they want to continue to work here and make this kind of money, they got to put up with shit like this. Where now, if Tony Khan would have flipped out on everybody or taken a side, well, there's another company that wants me too. And that's another factor that you can't just discredit and dismiss. Tony Khan as a boss and somebody who has a beef between his top star in the company and the other stars that the company is named after, that puts him in a tight spot. So obviously, if you're in Tony Khan's shoes, you're going to want to resolve that as best as possible. And it's still yet to be determined if the way Tony Khan went about this is going to be a success or not. So far, it doesn't look like it, because there still seems to be a lot of unresolved issues here. But at the end of the day, once you get everybody back under the same umbrella, everybody's healthy, starts wrestling again, maybe the ratings are decent. AEW's, picking up a little more steam, which then will boost morale. And then everybody realizes the upswing and the potential for money. And that's maybe when you can start getting everybody back in a room again, now that everybody's back into full wrestling mode. So I'm still hoping that happens in the future. Wherever I left off with Punk here, let me read the rest of this. So that was when after I said he wanted something done and nothing got done, right? So he goes on to say, so if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And I just didn't approach it in the right manner, but tension was high. I was very, very pissed. I pretty much knew that I had just injured myself again. I was hurt and I was disappointed. Yeah, it was very easy. It was very easy for me to say I regret that, and I handled it the wrong way 100%. So that is something else that we've mentioned before, is that you do have to, even though I think Punk was way, way out of line in that media scrum. I've never seen anything as unprofessional as that in my life, and I still stand by that, even though I'm a Punk fan. However, if you put yourself in Punk's mindset, I've got all this frustration with these guys, whether he's right or wrong, he has these frustrations with them. That's bothering him. That's driving him nuts. He had a match with Hangman Page where he got his tooth chipped and he wasn't sure if Hangman was shooting on him, and he won the title. And he also knew that he was injured and probably going to have to relinquish this title, and all of those frustrations boiled over and he went nuts. Fair enough. As long as you guys can all clean it up and when we get to the year point of this happening, if you guys are all back on the same page and on the right track, then fine. But if not, it's going to be looked back at something that is going to plague your company, and did plague your company, if you don't take care of this. So Punk, final paragraph I'll read here from Punk. He says, now all we Now we all got to roll in the fucking mud. I had trouble reading that. And that should never have happened and has never been course corrected. So I understand people want to say, oh man, Punk is a dick. Well, yeah, because I'm defending myself and I will always defend myself. I'm open to having a full-blown sit-down powwow discussion with everybody about it. But it hasn't happened yet, and it's not because of my lack of trying. So CM Punk, we have heard that. He's pretty much confirming what we've heard for months, and that is he does want to talk this out. But for whatever reason, we don't really know yet if it's Tony Khan not wanting that or if it's the Bucks just being so pissed with him that they want literally nothing to do with him. Matt Jackson had some little Instagram thing that seemed to be a response to what Punk said. The Young Bucks blocked Matt Kuhn on Twitter, who is opinionated about the situation, but he's very fair. You know, he's definitely not operating in bad faith or, you know, attacking any side specifically, trying to look at this thing logically, and he got a block for it, you know, probably for pointing out some of the things that he feels that CM Punk is not guilty of. So there's a lot going on here. Like Samoa Joe said, these are grown men that need to figure it out. I think it's a little bit childish, regardless of what's going on here. These guys are all very good wrestlers in their own right, and it would be amazing if they were all getting along, because when Punk first came in, remember a few of those like after Dynamite segments where Punk's in the ring, he had his arm around Hangman, and you know, I just wish that he was in their good graces and each other's good graces. I wish they could get along. Punk's difficult to get along with. If Punk turns out to be totally innocent in this matter, which I'll never believe he is, but if it turns out that, you know, if you put this thing to jury, or if you you know, had 1 million people judge this thing, and the majority of the people feel that the Bucks kind of were a little bit more wrong than Punk was, you know, then we can chalk up our feelings to what we've always known CM Punk to be. The reason probably a lot of people just instinctively blamed him is because of his reputation, is because of the countless falling outs this guy has had in his life with good friends, close friends, family members, parents, brothers, wrestling companies, you name it. Punk has had bridges and connections burned to the fucking ground with so many people that he comes into contact with. I don't think fans should really be criticized for thinking this one's probably his fault too. But now that we see all of the information coming out, this does sound like there is definitely blame on both sides, for sure. And I don't see how you can look at it any other way than that. I don't know how anybody can say this is all CM Punk's fault and nobody else's. And I don't know how anybody can say this is all the Elite's fault and nobody else's. There is blame here. This is just some shit that's got to get worked out. And, you know, if this happened in my restaurant, you know, if I had a couple of employees that wanted to like literally fist fight each other, they'd either have to work it out or would both be fired. One wouldn't be fired. They both would be, you know, figure it out, work together, or you're both gone. There's really no two ways about it. So, unfortunately, my career's a little bit more simple than a complex situation like this, but interesting read, just more drama. I mean, literally up to the minute that we're about to watch Collision, we're still talking about all of the CM Punk drama. So that's the latest with CM Punk. We will see how that match goes with him and FTR tonight in the main event. Let's move on to some TV rights news from WWE. Andrew Marchand of the New York Post reports that WWE's exclusive media rights negotiation windows with NBC Universal and Fox have expired. Now, this doesn't really mean anything. This just allows them to engage in discussions with other potential media partners. The current contracts for Raw and SmackDown on USA and Fox end in October of 2024. So nearly a year and a half here left on these deals, but the negotiation window, I guess, have expired, which means they can now talk to everybody. Disney, Amazon, Apple TV, and Warner Brothers Discovery are all in the mix. Warner Brothers would probably be a wild card since they are involved with AEW, but everything is on the table now. I still think there's a very, very good chance, excellent chance, that everything just stays where they're at. I would assume that Fox is incredibly happy with the numbers WWE is doing. USA has had a business arrangement with WWE since I was 6 years old. So I think this is pretty standard procedure, and there's nothing to really worry about yet. I've saw people making videos about this and everything. I'm like, this is kind of standard shit. I wouldn't worry too much about WWE changing networks. I have a good feeling they're going to stay right where they are. But if they move, you know, this is a different day and age. At this point, most people will be able to access them wherever they go. So if they went to Disney and then they went to ESPN or FX or something like that, or if they went to Amazon or Apple TV or what the fuck ever, I'll find them. Go wherever you want, WWE. At this point, it's all about the money to you guys. You don't give a shit what's convenient for the fans at all. So whatever gets them the best deal, do it. I'll watch you wherever you happen to be. It's going to be easy to find them. They're not going to sign a deal and be on platforms that are less accessible than Fox and USA unless they got some really, really crazy, financial deal that would make up for that. Otherwise, as fans, we're going to have no problem finding WWE content wherever it airs. And right now, I consider that to be a non-issue. Speaking of WWE, Carlito has been pulled from a bunch of live events on the indies amid rumors that apparently he might have re-signed with WWE. He showed up at Backlash a few weeks back and got probably the loudest ovation of the year. My God. Granted, they were in Puerto Rico, and Carlito, he's over everywhere, but he's very over in Puerto Rico. His whole family is. But we've been wanting him to come back for quite some time. I think he's made a couple of random appearances. He did a Royal Rumble, and he showed up at the Hall of Fame to induct Carlos. And then this appearance here, but he never really came back in. I always felt like he had a sour taste in his mouth, how he was treated with WWE, never really gave a shit about him or gave a shit about coming back. But now it's been so many years. Carlito is jacked. He's he's in amazing shape. And coming back now, near almost 20 years after he debuted. When did he debut? 2005, 2006, something like that. So we're going on 17 years or whatever it's been since he debuted all those years ago with the apple and the spitting and all that shit. Bringing him back now might be kind of fun. So I hope Carlito does come back. And apparently, if signed, he will be the first talent hired of 2023. That's pretty crazy that we are nearly 7 months in and they haven't hired anybody yet. Let's talk a little bit about last week's Monday Night Raw. 1.6 million they pulled in, but they were up against the NBA Finals, which saw the Denver Nuggets win the NBA championship, beating the Miami Heat. And I have no real personal love for the Denver Nuggets at all. The Pistons passed on Carmelo Anthony in I think it was the 2003 draft. LeBron went number 1. Pistons drafted a Darko Milicic, number 2, allowing the Nuggets to grab Melo. What the fuck? And then a few years later, we trade Chauncey Billups to Denver for Allen Iverson. So I don't have a ton of love for Denver, but what I like about the Denver Nuggets the most is that team was built, not bought. And I like that, especially in today's era of the super teams. It's nice to see a team win at old school. So congrats to the Denver Nuggets. And even despite that, WWE still pulled in a 1.6 rating. Rhea Ripley did get her new championship belt. We speculated about that last week when Asuka was presented her new belt. And the feeling was once we saw what Asuka's belt looked like, even though for some reason it says undisputed on there, which I don't get, when she was presented her new belt, we were assuming on Raw, Rhea Ripley would likely get a new belt as well that would hopefully resemble Seth Rollins. This is a good way for WWE to continue to streamline their belts, organize this shit a little bit. I've been complaining about it for years, and now finally it makes a little bit of sense. No more Raw and SmackDown titles. You now have the WWE Women's title and the WWE World Women's title, something like that. But anyway, you got Seth and Rhea with their belts kind of matching Roman and Asuka on SmackDown. And now if you interchange these belts, you don't have to do any stupid belt swapping ceremony bullshit. And the belt looks good. Like I've said, I'm not a big fan of the championship belts today. They've hit their ceiling once you insist on having that big obnoxious W right slapped in the middle of it. You can't be that creative with your belts anymore because that's what you have to do. You can't make a cool design like back in the day. So with Seth's belt, I think it's going to grow on me. That's the closest thing we're ever going to get to a big gold. I've been saying that. Bring back the Winged Eagle or bring back the big gold. We're never going to get the big gold. This is going to be as good as we get. So having Rhea having a similar looking title to the men's and them all kind of looking the same, I think is good. The belt looked good. It was also awesome to see Dominic put it around her waist. We're about to unify the NXT and WWE women's tag team titles this week, and then we just got to figure out what to do with all of those belts that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are holding and what they want to do about that. But eventually, I'd like to see that get cleaned up too. So Rhea got her new belt on Raw this past week. I didn't really watch the show. I just basically eyeballed it. I did see the Seth Rollins and Finn Balor segment where poor Finn wasn't allowed to speak because the fans were singing Seth's song the entire time. But Balor and Seth is a pretty sexy match to have in London for the title. And who knows, you might get some sort of a cash in there because Damian Priest is also in the Money in the Bank. Damian Priest has also been doing the deal lately on TV where he like wants to go to the ring alone. So you can already tell they're going babyface with him. It's just a matter of when he's going to turn. You know, he might even come out and accidentally cost Balor the match or something, which, you know, leads to a feud. But I would like to see Damian Priest win the Money in the Bank. That would be pretty awesome. But there also might be a final participant in that Money in the Bank. Last minute, people are talking about Logan Paul. Logan Paul is set to appear on Raw this Monday, and fans were speculating and wondering last week if Logan Paul could actually enter himself into the Money in the Bank. Now, we already have the 6 men for this, but I think they've done 7 or 8 people before, so I don't even know if there's a real set number you have to have. I assumed it would be even, 3 Raw, 3 SmackDown, but Logan's probably one of them free agent type of guys, isn't he? Did he get drafted in that draft? I don't think he did, but he might have. I can't remember. Well, yeah, I guess he did because he's going to Raw. I actually don't know. But if Logan Paul is undrafted or a free agent, then he's kind of that neutral guy. And if he did enter himself in to the Money in the Bank, that makes me worried because the only realistic way I feel like, as good as Logan Paul is, much of a prick as he is, but also as good as he has performed in the ring and how he really does have a knack for this, even though it rips my guts out to say that. It's true. I can't help what's true. He's good. He can talk. He looks good. He looks like a star. He performs like a star. He's a star, like it or not. And so far in WWE, every match that he's had has gotten very high praise. However, it's going to be really tough for WWE to ever put the title on this guy. The only way you're going to be able to do it is in a Money in the Bank type of situation. I don't think, even though Logan Paul has had competitive matches with guys like Roman Reigns, even though he's had competitive matches, I don't know if you have Logan beat one of your wrestlers clean for a championship, you know? It might have to be a Money in the Bank cash in. Plus, he's a heel already anyway. So if he cashes in on a, you know, an injured star like, oh, I don't know, the guy who beat him at WrestleMania, Seth Rollins, that could be what they do. You might see Logan Paul cash in on Rollins, and then maybe you do Rollins and Paul Part 2 for the title at SummerSlam, and Logan Paul's run is just a month long. Maybe he cashes in London at Money in the Bank, or maybe on Raw the Monday after, and then Logan is the champion. But you know, you don't overdo it with him. You don't have him overstay his welcome. You don't keep the belt on him for, you know, fucking 2 years. Just do it for a few weeks, book the match at SummerSlam. Seth regains the title. Maybe you do it that way. But the World Heavyweight title just got introduced. Seth is your first champion. Do you really want to only have him hold this thing for like 5 or 6 weeks and then a celebrity take the belt off of him? Not exactly the best start for your new championship. And I don't know if that's really the direction they want to do, but why would Logan Paul be showing up? It's just a couple weeks before Money in the Bank. Why would he be here? To start some issue with somebody unless they want to chuck him in a match at Money in the Bank? Could he come back and start a feud with somebody on Raw? And then you get Logan Paul versus so-and-so at Money in the Bank? Maybe, but we already have 5 matches and a couple of big singles matches already booked for the show. Do you even need that? It sounds like he might have something to do with that Money in the Bank, and that scares me shitless. At this point, as long as he doesn't cash it in on Roman, I'm okay. If he cashes it in on Seth, it'll be a little revenge for WrestleMania, and then Seth can win it back. No harm done. But Logan Paul, I mean, if you're going to put a belt on him, probably better to put a new title, not the WWE title, whose lineage can be traced back to the 60s. But this new title that you just pulled out of your butt, stick that thing on him, and then you can call him world champion. I guess if you're going to put the championship on Logan Paul, that's our best option. Money in the Bank scenario and a title that's brand new instead of beating someone for Roman's title clean, you know? So you got to take what you can get as fans, because we know how WWE operates. We know how much they like Logan Paul, and he is a big name that WWE has found that can also wrestle. You know, he's a major star, unlike in WCW. You know, everybody criticized putting the title on David Arquette. You know, David Arquette was a great entertainer. I met David Arquette. He's awesome. But he's not a wrestler. It was a joke to do that. Logan Paul is a whole different story than David Arquette. I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare Logan to David Arquette, because Logan can work and he's good, real good. And he even looks like a wrestler. He's in shape. You know, David Arquette was way smaller. He was just a normal sized guy. You know, Logan's Logan's somewhat jacked for, for a normal person. So I'm just trying to silver lining this, like, oh God, if they're going to put the title on Logan Paul, fans are going to complain. But if it turns out to be the scenario that I just laid out, at the end of the day, how would that be like bad for wrestling? It's going to be good for WWE. It's going to give them a shitload of publicity. Logan Paul is going to be able to take that belt all over the place and promote stuff and just get it out there that Logan Paul has won a professional wrestling championship. But that type of stuff has a shelf life. You can't have this douche out doing this for months and months or years at a time. This has to be short and sweet. So you put the belt on him, Money in the Bank or the Raw after, he wins the title from Seth, and then he drops it back to Seth at SummerSlam. I got no issue with that scenario, and if it happened, I don't think it would be a disgrace to wrestling, because you're going to hear that if Logan Paul does win that title. It's a slap in the face to, but no, wrestling has done far more things that have slapped wrestling in the face way harder than this, if it turns out to be this. So if it turns out to be a quick little short run for Logan Paul and he drops the belt back in a timely manner, why am I going to sit here and complain? It's too damn nice outside. The sun is shining. It's fucking summertime. It's 80 degrees. Why am I going to complain about that? Nobody else should either. Why don't we get into SmackDown last night? It's a big one. Before we do that, I haven't talked to the chat in a while. Hi, chat. Let's go over here and say hello. I could still use some likes. Likes are a little low. If you get me up to 100 likes, that would be great. And as you see in the ticker, you get me up to 1,000 likes. On the next stream, I will put handprints on my boobies like Sable. 1,000 likes. It's up to y'all. It's up to y'all. Where is my mouse? There we go. All right, let me make sure I didn't miss too many supers. I think it just maybe a couple, maybe one. Who is that from? Mab. Oh, here's a couple here. Mab, good to see you, my friend. Appreciate that 5 drop from you. Happy Saturday, Greg. Can't wait for Civil War. That's going to be a good one. We're about to talk about that. Al Ramos, appreciate the 2 from you, my friend. What's up, good mic work? My all-time favorite returns tonight. I'm happy for you, Al, man. I hope it's a successful return. Trust me. I really do. SCW channel, Joe summed it up perfectly. He did. He absolutely did. I haven't agreed with a take more than I've agreed since this whole thing started than I have with that take from Samoa Joe yesterday. Absolutely agree. 1,000,000,000%. You're grown-ass men. Figure it out. And I think I've been saying that since September. How many times has CM Punk graced the overlay or the thumbnail here since this has happened? It's literally all we've been talking about. So at least tonight begins the road to recovery for us. Hopefully by the time we reach the 1-year mark, all of this shit is at least under the rug or resolved to the best degree that it can be resolved to. To where finally maybe a conversation between Punk and Hangman happens. Because sometimes I think that's all it takes. If you guys ever been in a beef or like a fight, I haven't been in a fight as an adult, but as a kid, anybody that I had a fist fight with or had some problem with, I was always friends with after, always. Sometimes it just takes that one kind of little conversation. And I would hate to think a year of bad feelings could be resolved with one 10-minute conversation. You just stick Punk and Hangman in a fucking bouncy castle and say, sit in there and work it out. And don't come out until you do. Jump around, have a match in there if you have to. But I just feel like if they were just there, cooler heads would prevail. Everybody, I've never heard anything but positive things about Hangman Page and his personality. That's why it makes, unless Hangman Page just decides that Punk is a prick, he doesn't like him, and he's made his decision. Page has every reason to feel that way because he's got a mountain of evidence to support his claim. But I've never heard of Hangman Page being a dick in any way, shape, or form. Seems like a pretty good dude to me. So, we've heard other things about the Bucks, but when it comes to Hangman, he seems like somebody who should get along with Punk. So they should just get in a room, figure it out. That's what we hope, but enough about them. We have to talk about the Bloodline. We are, an hour into the podcast here, and we're just now getting to our top story. Holy crap. The top story really should be, even though we opened with CM Punk, really has to be the amazing angle last night on SmackDown. Now, SmackDown wasn't much of a show. We had a number 1 contender tag team gauntlet match, which was won by Pretty Deadly. So about 5 or 6 matches took place there. They won that. Zelina defeated Io Sky one-on-one. It looks like Io and Bayley are having some issues between them, and they're both going to be in the Money in the Bank match next month. Bianca and Charlotte were on the Grayson Waller effect. Who cares? They talk. The only thing I was thinking about is that maybe, I don't know. I feel like they're going to do a triple threat. Just Bianca, Charlotte trash talk. There might be some Money in the Bank implications there with a cash-in or something. Maybe that's why they got the title off of Bianca, so she didn't have to be cashed in on. Maybe that was one thought that kind of occurred to me watching that. Also, Karrion Kross and Scarlett defeated AJ Styles and Mia Yim in a tag team match, and Kross debuted a new finisher, kind of like an F5 looking thing, hit it on AJ and pinned him and got the win. Also, Santos Escobar defeated LA Knight. I don't understand why LA Knight is a heel when he's clearly getting positive reactions from the fans. Everybody sings the praises of LA Knight. Everybody wants to see LA Knight get a push, regardless of what stupid tribal lines you stand on Twitter and all the idiocy and nonsense vomited out on that site on a daily basis, 24/7. The one thing that every fan, no matter where they stand, can come together on is that everybody feels like LA Knight should get an opportunity. So why isn't he? Maybe he's going to win the Money in the Bank, sure, but that's only part of the problem. This guy needs to be a babyface, WWE. I mean, I don't understand. This is Triple H. You're supposed to be in charge now. Is this a Vince thing? Like, this is something we're expecting from Vince, for him to not see what's staring him right in the goddamn face. People like LA Knight. People want LA Knight. He is not very young. It's not like this guy's 27 years old with his career ahead of him. If you're going to get anything out of him substantial on a main event level, you better do that now. Otherwise, you're just having him there to pay him to be mid-card for no reason. And what's the fucking point of that when fans actually want to see him? Aren't we the ones supposed to be making the decisions here? Aren't you guys supposed to listen to your audience, and maybe push and feature talent based on those reactions? Why aren't you doing it? WWE's not all perfect. That Bloodline thing might have been perfect, but there's a lot of shit they still do real wrong. Figure out LA Knight, have him win the Money in the Bank, and have him, oh man, imagine if he can. I don't think he can. I don't think anybody can cash in on Roman, but maybe LA Knight winning the Money in the Bank would be a good way to turn him babyface. Maybe he wins it as a heel or something like that, and then beats whoever beats Seth for it. I don't know. But he would be a good guy to have with a briefcase because he's somebody who could hold it for a while and could talk a lot of smack and could maybe even undergo a babyface turn in the process of holding the Money in the Bank. Has anybody ever done that? Has anybody ever gone from heel to babyface while holding the Money in the Bank? Help me out in the chat. I don't think so. We've only seen a couple of champions turn heel, like CM Punk and Randy Savage both turned heel in the middle of their runs. And that's another rare thing too. So I'm not sure if anybody's done that with the briefcase, but it might be a good way to do that with LA Knight. But like I said, I'm terrified that Logan Paul is going to be in this match now, and he probably will be. But we'll find out for sure on Monday. Maybe I've got the whole thing misread, and maybe Logan is just showing up there to feud with somebody and book a match for London. Maybe that's all it is. We'll find out. Let's talk about the decision. No, not LeBron's decision. This is Jey Uso's decision. This is a decision they advertised to be made last week, and they didn't do it. So Jey has to decide if he's going to choose the Bloodline or if he's choosing Jimmy. He comes out with Roman and Solo and Heyman, and Roman, goes on about how Jey is going to be the next one in line, the next tribal chief, the chosen one, the right-hand man, all of that. Out comes Jimmy. Comes down to the ring. I don't even think his music played, which I liked. Came down to the ring and got in Jey Uso's face. Now, earlier on in the night, Jey Uso had run-ins backstage with Paul Heyman, and right before he came to the ring, nothing was said, but he walked right past Sami Zayn. They took a long stare at each other, look in the eye, a nod, and Sami was like, go do what you got to do, man. And the love that Sami still has for Jey, the way this storyline has just been so beautifully orchestrated. I have not had the feeling of emotion in a wrestling storyline since I was in my 20s. When I'm going to talk about what happens here, what happened in my heart, the way it fluttered when that happened, and it's like, I was like, holy shit, I haven't felt that way in so long. Everything is just so emotionless and soulless now, even though I can enjoy what we see in the ring a lot and great matches and still very entertaining stuff in wrestling overall. In terms of me really getting behind something, it's been a while, man. So seeing Jey and Sami look at each other like that, I'm like, So they're in the ring now. Like I said, Jimmy comes out and he yells at Jey, how can you believe this bullshit? How can you listen to this? Like, listen to him. How can you be abused? Basically just rehashing everything that we've already heard and stuff that Jey should know. And that's when Jey says, because, your injury is a blessing in disguise. You got hurt. I stepped up. I main evented SmackDown. I main evented pay-per-views. I main evented WrestleMania. I'm the right-hand man. I'm the next guy. And it's all because of him. And he points to Roman Reigns. And then he steps up to Jimmy Uso and he goes, so you know what? You're out. And then Roman just laughs. And then he stares at Jimmy, puts the mic up to his hand, and he goes, and I'm out too. Super kick from hell, right to the face of Roman Reigns. Well, I mean, I wish I would have watched this live. I was working, so you guys were telling me what happened. I didn't get to watch it until last night when I got home. But I really wish I would have been watching this unfold as it happened. It would have been so great. I think it would have been an even bigger reaction. I mean, I looked down at my phone last night and I had a bunch of notifications. You got to check out the ending. You got to check out the ending. And that was so well done. Then Solo, of course, is standing there. Paul Heyman crumples. He's got the other 2 belts, by the way, that he's carrying. He falls to his knees. Belts fall all around him. Solo goes after Jey, gets kicked, and then a double super kick to Solo to roll him out of the ring. And then in the best part of the whole thing is Roman now trying to get to his feet, and he's pissed. He's like, what the fuck, man? And he's climbing up the ropes, and both Usos are standing there, and you know what's going to happen. And Roman gets to his feet, and he's screaming at him, and he's kind of hobbling around, selling it, and they hit him with the gnarliest double super kick I've ever seen. Roman sold that like death. That man went all out for his cousins. I mean, everybody is playing their role so perfectly. I could do without the 176 camera cuts in 4 fucking seconds, Kevin Dunn, you dickhead. But other than that, wow, so perfect. I mean, those super kicks were right on point. Roman selling it was right on point. The emotion, Jey played his role perfectly. Jimmy played his role perfectly. Solo played his role perfectly. And the cherry on top was Paul Heyman and his amazing reactions to the level of how he reacted when Brock beat the streak. Oh my God, oh my God. And the fade to black with Roman laid out in the ring and Heyman outside of the ring with his head sticking up over the ring apron, just with his hands and just belts strewn about. Oh my God. That is wrestling. And that's when, as a wrestling fan, I'm happy that WWE is on a network like Fox, because on a network like that, you are going to have outside non-wrestling eyes watching that. And I cringe whenever they have to tune in to a really botchy women's match or just some match that just sucks or something stupid or some really idiotic, cringy promo, and a non-wrestling fan tunes in and is like, how can anybody watch this shit? And I agree. I don't know how we watch this shit. But every now and then you get something that's so fabulous. I don't care who you are, if you like wrestling or not. If you watched that, you probably thought that was pretty good. So I hope that there were non-wrestling fans watching. I hope there were non-wrestling fans last night surfing through SmackDown that stopped when they saw Jey and Jimmy in the ring and watched that whole, even if they don't know the whole story, just the reaction from the audience and the crowd. They're going to see that this must be a big deal. I wonder what that was about, and, maybe they'll be interested to see what led to all of that. We saw the finish, or we saw the end of the movie. Now I want to go see what led up to all that. And maybe a wrestling fan is born. You never know. So, that was just really well done and just excellent stuff from WWE last night. And now it is official for Money in the Bank. Jey and Jimmy Uso will be taking on Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa in a Bloodline Civil War match. And that is fucking badass. So here is our Money in the Bank card so far. We got that tag match I just mentioned. Cody taking on Dominic, which I love. That was set up on Monday Night Raw, by the way. And that's a match that I don't know why anybody is complaining about. That's awesome. That's your top babyface and your top heel, or at least in terms of reaction that Dominic gets. He's getting Don Callis level boos in there, and Vince 98 level boos for that matter. So Cody and Dominic is a great one. That's going to be fun for fan participation, because London is going to have a ball with that. They are going to have an absolute ball with that match. Mark my words. It's going to be deafening boos for Dominic, and it's going to be probably pretty positive cheers for Cody, I would imagine. And I think that one is going to rival like a Raw after WrestleMania match back when Raws after WrestleManias were good, and just how the crowd is nuts. So I think it's going to be like that. I can't wait. Finn Balor challenging Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title as well. So that's the big three non-Money in the Bank matches is those three. And then women's Money in the Bank match, we have Becky, Bayley, Io Sky, Zoe Stark, and Zelina Vega qualified so far, and they are going to be joined by either Trish Stratus or Raquel Rodriguez, who have a qualifying match on Monday. So I kind of want to see Trish win the Money in the Bank. I want to see Trish win the title one last time. I feel like with Trish and Becky in this, they're going to cancel each other out and set up a SummerSlam match. But what if like Charlotte beat, well, fuck, how are you going to do that? That's going to be hard. I was thinking like Charlotte could beat Asuka for the title. Then Trish as a heel could win the Money in the Bank, cash in on Charlotte, getting revenge for losing to Charlotte at SummerSlam a couple of years ago. And now Trish is champion again. And then maybe she loses and drops the belt to Becky at SummerSlam. But that wouldn't work because you got people on different brands and, we had that draft. So that probably scenario like that probably wouldn't work. But the very fact that Trish is in a qualifying match makes me wonder that they might actually do that. I would like to see Trish get a quick run with the title before she retires one more time. Her comeback here, she's taken the time to do the comeback, put the belt on her. Why not? You have two women's titles. You can't afford to put one on one of the best women's champions you've ever had. I think there's room for that. And especially if she were to, drop it to say Becky at SummerSlam there. But then again, the two women could cancel each other out. Either way, I think we're going to see Becky and Trish at SummerSlam. It just sounds like now there's a very good chance there could be a belt or a briefcase involved. We will see. And in the men's match so far, we have LA Knight, Shinsuke Nakamura, Butch, Ricochet, Santos, and Escobar and Damian Priest all qualified for the men's Money in the Bank. I love this because no former world champions in there. That's pretty cool. However, like I said, Logan Paul is booked for Raw on Monday, and he might insert himself into that affair. We got to talk a little bit about one of the best Dynamites I've seen in a while. Holy shit, that was a great show on Wednesday night. Again, I wasn't home to watch it live. I had to watch it after the fact, but it was so good that, between the closing segment of SmackDown last night and Wednesday's Dynamite, it's great to be a wrestling fan and it's stupid to be tribal. That's all I'm going to say. Dynamite had some excellent shit on the show. They opened with a 30-minute time limit draw between MJF and Adam Cole. Now, they booked that match pretty early. We were surprised we were getting a one-on-one between those two already, thinking that this would come later, like starting with a match and then building backwards almost. But this was a championship eliminator match, meaning if Cole got the win, he would then get a future title shot. But we all thought this was way too early. And I speculated last week that something's going to happen here. They're either going to have MJF win or some sort of a way to revisit this, whether it be outside interference. I thought maybe MJF or Adam Cole's Forbidden Door opponent could make an appearance here and fuck the match up, giving them a reason to come back to this later. But what we got instead was a perfectly executed 30-minute time limit draw. These guys executed the finish to this match just as good as the Bloodline executed their segment last night on SmackDown. It was so good. The match was good. MJF is getting better and better with each passing month. And we all know what Adam Cole can do. And these two guys had a phenomenal match out there. My God, it was one of the best TV matches I've seen in quite a while. And the finish was the perfect way. I think the only thing I would have done differently is they kind of telegraphed it. You felt like a time limit draw was a possibility when the announcers mentioned the time a few times, especially early. I'm like, shit, they're going to go Broadway here, and they're letting us know now. But that's still a way, like I said, to revisit this later. But who even cared? Because the match physically in the ring was fantastic. In the end, with Adam Cole hitting the boom and covering him with the ref kind of doing the slow count. And apparently, they didn't even kayfabe the time. This was legitimately 30 minutes to the dot. So they really, really timed this great. And it was a spectacular match, spectacular finish. And it allows MJF to escape. I think even Adam Cole wanted 5 more minutes. I'd like to see the old 5-minute trope brought back. And of course, MJF scurries away and runs away. No, fuck you. And now MJF's going to face, Tanahashi at Forbidden Door. And then we'll start July. And then hopefully we can rebuild this issue between Cole and MJF and set it up for All In or All Out, which still is going to be 2 months away. So I don't know if they're going to do Fyter Fest in July or what, but I feel like MJF and Adam Cole, I want Adam Cole to beat him for the title. That's what I want. Unless Collision kicks off in a big way tonight and Tony Khan feels like they got to go back to CM Punk or something, because I think a Punk and MJF program is something that we did expect prior to Punk's injury. But Adam Cole would be an excellent choice in my mind to be the next champion in AEW, and I hope it ends with that result. But we'll see where this match happens. I'm hoping for Wembley or All Out, one or the other, for that final match or that title change between the two to take place. That's what I'm eyeballing there. Great interview with Sammy Guevara. They are making steps to turn him babyface. I think that's going to be a little tough to do. He had a decent response from the crowd, although you could still hear some boos. He was interviewed by Renee Paquette in the ring. He had a crazy tan going on. I don't know what was going on with him there. I think he was in Brazil or something. And he went on to talk about, Ty being pregnant and that they are having a girl. And, and I'm like, this isn't the type of stuff that gets guys over as baby faces. Sammy has already kind of had this reputation of being a prick, and he flaunts his relationship, and fans just hated him and Ty Mello. They loved Ty Mello before she got with Sammy. And all of a sudden she sucks and all that because they realized their crusty ass can't have her. But they got a lot of heat. I'd rather see them stay that way, but you can't because Ty Mello's now pregnant. She's not going to be on TV, and she can't be part of that whole annoying gimmick with the two. So now we all know Tony Khan loves Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara is a great talent. I like Sammy Guevara. I've met Sammy. He's super nice. And he's super talented too. World champion material? I don't know. I'd probably say probably not yet. But that's what his aspirations are. He talked about that. He wants to go after the AEW title, and that's when he's joined and interrupted, I should say, by Darby Allin. This is subtle but smart by Tony Khan, AEW, because if you want to try to get somebody over as a babyface who is going to struggle to get over as a babyface because of the heat they already have, put him in the ring and give him rubs with guys that the majority of the audience likes. Darby is super over. Everybody likes Darby. He gets good reactions from the crowd in his matches and in his promos. So bringing Darby out there to talk to Sammy and put him over was smart. He congratulated Sammy on his pregnancy or on Ty's pregnancy and having a kid, and said he honestly means that. And he says, I don't know if you've noticed, but the fans are starting to cheer for you again. And that got a little bit better of a response. So Darby was out there to kind of help the crowd along. And he goes on to tell Sammy that he doesn't have to be in the shadows of the JAS. He says that him and Sting are viewed as equals, and it's not called the Sting Appreciation Society. And he needs to break away from that nonsense and, go off on his own and become a star. And that's when Chris Jericho comes out. Jericho comes out with a bat, and he talks to Sammy. He goes, when you were chasing MJF for the title, you never once called me. And then Sammy was like, well, you never called me either when you were getting your ass kicked by Adam Cole. So already Sammy taking shots at Jericho. Sounds like this whole thing is crumbling. And Jericho, I forgot what he says that triggers this, but Sting's music hits. Sting ends up coming out. Sting has one of his own bats too. And as he's coming to the ring, the announcers are like, this is the first time Jericho and Sting have ever been face to face. I can't believe they haven't crossed paths in AEW yet, but I guess they haven't. And they never were in the same company together in WWE. Sting came in maybe 2014 in WWE. Maybe Jericho was there, but Sting was just there working with Triple H and Seth and Hall of Fame, and he was done. And then, of course, Jericho never went to TNA, and Sting and Jericho never had any run-ins in WCW either, despite working there together. So in all of these years, they've never had any sort of face-to-face. And honestly, that's kind of cool. Get Jericho and Sting done once before Sting hangs it up for good. Yeah, they're both 108 years old, but what do I care? It's Sting and Jericho. Sting's makeup hides his age. You can barely tell. You can tell when he's in the ring working physically, but his makeup and his clothes and everything kind of hides that. He still looks like the Sting of old. And him and Jericho face to face one time, a couple of Hall of Fame legend icons. I'm not going to complain about that. We have 6 hours of content every week from AEW. We got about the same amount, if not more, from WWE. We got pay-per-views out the ass every time we turn around. I can waste one match on Sting and Jericho, sure, for nostalgia, just to say we got it done. We never got Sting and Taker and Sting and a lot of guys done, but being able to get a Sting and Jericho match, sure, I'm all for it. Is the match going to be Ricochet and Will Ospreay? No, but it's going to be interesting and looking forward to that. So I don't know if that's going to be Forbidden Door. They just might do that on TV, or if they might make that a tag team affair. Maybe even Les Sex Gods reuniting to take on Darby and Sting, and That's where you do the turn of Sammy. I don't know. But they didn't really speak. They just put the bats to each other's necks, and that was the end of the segment. So I thought that was really well done and interesting to see Jericho and Sting face to face. All in all, pretty cool. Wardlow defended his TNT title against Jake Hager. We had Bernard and Parker out there, raising hell. Brock Anderson and Arn Anderson came out to take out those two numbskulls, and we had a power bomb to Jake Hager for the win, and Wardlow retains his title, and he has another title match tonight. In a surprisingly good match, Toni Storm successfully retained her title over Sky Blue, and a big scare for her. Oh my God, this match was way better than I thought. This was so well executed. It was just perfect. Sky Blue, who was also a guest on AEW this week, with some really interesting revelations in that. I like Sky Blue better than what's her nuts in NXT. The one that looks like her, Cora Jade. I like Sky Blue better. Sorry, Cora. And she had a hell of a match here with Toni Storm. So Toni goes for the spray paint. She's got the spray paint, and she's coming in the ring because the referee is distracted. She comes up to Sky Blue, who's kind of like crouched over, who has her own can of blue spray paint. So as Toni comes over to spray paint Sky spray paints Toni in the face and then tags her with an Uso-level perfect super kick, catches her right on the jaw, and Toni flings her arms back, and the spray paint can goes flying up in the air and lands right in a fan's hand, like in the third row. It was so fucking perfect. And then Sky hits the code blue on Toni Storm for the pin, but the referee is distracted, and because Ruby Soho is distracting the referee. So Sky comes in with a super kick to Ruby, who goes flying off the apron, and in just an amazing sell. And then we had a Storm Zero. Toni then takes advantage of Sky Blue being distracted, hits her with a Storm Zero, and she kicks out. You thought that was going to be the finish. That's generally a way a match like that is going to end. That would have been your finish, but she kicks out. And then Toni Storm recovers and just puts her in a sick Texas Cloverleaf. Perfectly executed. Bret Hart sharpshooter level of perfection in the execution from Toni Storm on the Texas Cloverleaf. She cinches back. It's tight. It's nasty. And Sky Blue, poor thing, has no chance but to tap out. But what a match. What an outing for Sky Blue. This might be, a match that's really going to help elevate her career. And she kind of showed that she belonged. I wasn't sure. I saw her wrestle, when I was at Dynamite a couple weeks ago. When I was in the second row, she worked a dark match, and she's very good, but you just still see that she's got lots of room to improve, and she's just only going to get better. And she performed in a way here that I wasn't expecting. Really, really good stuff. After the match, Toni Storm and Ruby Soho continue the attack on Sky Blue until Willow, how you doing, makes the save and runs off Toni and Ruby, and that sets up our tag team match tonight on Collision. So that was very, very good and very surprising. And then the main event was all kinds of fun. Was it an overbooked mess, or was it the epitome of what wrestling is supposed to be? I like it for the fun level of it. Fans who want to take shit too seriously and overthink, you are not the booker. Your job is to be a fan and enjoy the content. Your job is not to think along the lines of somebody that's in management. And I think way too many fans do. Oh no, too many people came out. Look, man, I'm looking to have fun. I'm sorry that you're not. And I saw a lot of complaints about, it's fucking all over the place, man. I'm like, we had surprise after surprise. I kind of like chaos. As long as we don't have that every time, and as long as not everything is confusing and everything is hard to piece together, there was a lot of moving parts here and a lot of overlapping feuds all coming together in this one match here, but that's kind of the fun of it. I don't have any problem with this kind of stuff. And so I was really surprised to see some of the critics of it, but I was also happy to see a lot of people who praised it and thought it was very good. The match was Hangman Page and the Young Bucks taking on the BCC. We had Mox, Yuta, and Claudio, and this was a really fun match. No, it's probably not an accident that we had a six-man main eventing Dynamite and a six-man main eventing Collision tonight. I think there's going to be some internal competition here between entities like CM Punk and the Bucks to show their boss who is the most valuable to the company. And that's going to benefit us as wrestling fans to see these guys try to outdo each other. And as good as this six-man match was on Dynamite with all these moving parts, you got to think that FTR and Punk is going to want to do something too. So I'm hoping for a whole bunch of run-ins and a whole bunch of crazy shit happening in this match tonight. But this one was great. We had a buckshot lariat to Wheeler Yuta, for the win, and the Elite got the win here, straight up. So I kind of thought this might end a little schmozzy or something like that, but the Elite got the win. I still think we're going to get a blood and guts match coming up very soon between these two. Claudio and Moxley immediately hit the ring and continued to attack the babyfaces until Eddie Kingston comes out. Now, Eddie Kingston comes out. He's been feuding with Claudio in Ring of Honor. He goes straight for Claudio, starts attacking him, and then comes face-to-face with Moxley and stops because these guys have had a ton of history and they're very close. They don't fight, but they do argue a little bit until Takeshita comes out to a chorus of boos. He had an interview segment earlier on the night with Don Callis. I love Takeshita as a heel. I wasn't expecting him to be so good. He kind of reminds me of like Chosen from the Karate Kid 2. You know, he's just got that tough fucking face. He's just so great. I loved him as a baby face. I loved when he, would go shopping and report on that on social media. I just thought he was hilarious. And I almost thought he was too nice of a guy to be a heel, but he's pulling this off perfectly. Even though all of his promos are in Japanese and stuff, just his demeanor, his body language, everything, his presence, I love it. So he comes down to the ring and he attacks the Elite, and he's got a ton of heat. Fans boo the shit out of him. And you knew that Kenny was probably going to be showing up. Battle Cry starts playing. Kenny comes out, sprinting to the ring, and just makes a beeline for Takeshita, which you knew he was going to do that. They start fighting until Will Ospreay hits the ring from behind, attacks Kenny, hits him with a nasty Stormbreaker, and continues the attack after the fact, and basically just beat the shit out of him until the show went off the air. And of course, Kenny is going to be facing Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door. So you've got Kenny and Takeshita, their issue plus the Elite and the BCC's issue all together, and the Don Callis thing overlapping. And then, of course, Forbidden Door stuff creeping in here too. You got to wonder where Kota Ibushi is. He's probably going to show up at some point, maybe after Forbidden Door. And, excuse me, Ospreay and Kenny kind of closing out the show like that. I thought that was fine because they do have a big match at Forbidden Door. So I did not think this thing was overbooked at all. I like the, holy shit, another run in. Like, sometimes that's fine. Can you sustain this and do a closing like this and ending like this to every single show? No. Can every single match be like this? No. But every now and then, when you just want to throw a whole bunch of crazy shit at us, I don't care. I'm fine with it. WWE can do it. AEW can do it. I like it when chaos happens. I can take it in doses, and this was completely fine. I've been watching wrestling for 40 years. I've been watching wrestling 3 and 4 times longer, likely, than some of the people that was complaining about, no, this made sense. And I don't see that point of view at all. So I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. That's what wrestling is all about. Having fun, being entertained. None of this shit should ever make you mad. I know it makes me mad sometimes when they're putting white straps on Intercontinental title belts and they have 15 championships in red and blue and named after fucking laundry detergent. It pisses me off from time to time. But really, at the end of the day, nothing that we see in a wrestling match or anything like that should really, really upset us when you have something that's exciting and well done as that. So, all good stuff. Dynamite was a fantastic show this week. Really, really excellent show. Their rating did not do great. 800 and what I have the number down, 832. So that's on their baseline there. That's always where they're at. They're always in that 800,000 range. Yeah, but they're not building their audience. Yeah, I know. But fuck, wrestling is, where is it compared to where it used to be? I'm looking at the two companies and how their numbers compare to each other. And Brandon Thurston, who I get all my ratings from WrestleNomics, great follow on Twitter, by the way. Check him out. And he put up a rating from the last WCW Nitro, the night of the simulcast. There's like 10 million people watching wrestling that night. Like Raw got 6 million and Nitro got like 3.5. And when you look at that, like even when WCW was at the bottom, at its rock bottom at the end there, they were still pulling in over 3 million viewers, 3 times more than what AEW is doing. WWE, the ratings that Roman has been pulling in on SmackDown have been so highly praised, they are only in about the 2.5 million range. 1 million less than that final episode of Monday Nitro that sucked. At a time in WCW's history, that sucked. And WWE right now is doing numbers that they're very proud of, but in comparison, they're shit compared to back in the day. So it's kind of weird to compare now to then. So all you can do is just compare the two companies. What I see is a company that's 60 years old, and then some competition that has arisen over the last 4 to 5 years that have been able to build themselves up to about half of the ratings that WWE pulls in. Raw this past week got 1.6. Dynamite got 800,000. Guess what? That's half. There is no part of me that will ever see that as a failure. Yes, wrestling ratings across the board in all companies are nowhere near what they used to be. But in comparison to one another, if the two biggest games in town, one's 60 years old and one is 4 years old, I would expect the 4-year-old one to not be as big as the 60-year-old one. And when they're pulling in half of the ratings of their competition, I don't think that's horrible. Do they want to be better? Sure. But I said right when AEW started that I never believed any company, regardless of who owns it or how much money they have, is going to be able to come in and overtake the WWE as the top wrestling company in the world. That's never going to happen. What they need to worry about is being a successful wrestling company, because not being bigger than WWE doesn't mean you're not successful. And I think that's why fans are so one-dimensional and simple-minded in their thinking that way, is that as long as WWE is technically a bigger company, that means AEW fails. That's not what that means at all, not even close. AEW is pulling in about half the ratings, half the attendance, give or take, from WWE. The network has been giving them more TV time, wants to do more business with them, and AEW is in a really good spot business-wise, television-wise, and financial-wise. They're not going anywhere. So sure, they want to get better. They want to increase their ratings. There's a lot of glaring problems in AEW that need to get better and worked on, fixed, and improved. Sure. But let's not pretend that this is some company that's, run by a bunch of fucking knobs. There's some great people working there, some excellent wrestling personalities with a whole lot of more experience in wrestling than all the people bitching online about it. So I think it's in the wrestling fans' best interest to not be dicks. What do you think? Crazy idea, right? So yeah, that brings me basically to the end of my notes. I should mention last night on Rampage, Aubrey Edwards, Mark, and Papa Briscoe defeated Jeff and Karen, and Jay Lethal. Aubrey put the figure 4 on Karen Jarrett for the win for her team. And I think there was even a couple of guitar shots in there somewhere. So Rampage looked wacky. Forbidden Door right now is looking this way. We've got Okada taking on Danielson. That's my fucking main event. My God. Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. New Japan U.S. title match. Will Ospreay is going to win that title from Kenny Omega. I guarantee it. Sonata defending the IWGP title against Jungle Boy, which is hilarious. But Sonata needs somebody to beat, and Jungle Boy would be good. And pretty sure we're going to get Orange Cassidy and Zack Sabre Jr. I've been calling that match out for about a month now. That's the match I want to see at Forbidden Door. Went down the Zack Sabre Jr. rabbit hole not long ago on YouTube, and I'm like, man, that guy's fucking good. So OC and Zack Sabre Jr. is looking to be our match at Forbidden Door, even though I don't think that's confirmed yet. Probably will be on Wednesday. So yeah, I think that's the end of my notes. If you guys don't mind, I want to have a sandwich before we watch Collision. Let me cruise to, maybe I'll have a taco. I don't know what I'm going to have. I'm going to have something. Let me knock out any super chats that are here, and then I'm going to roll on out of here. Mark Galan, appreciate it. Oh man, you going to discuss Jungle Hook segment? No, I'm not. I don't have it written down. I don't see it. Was that the crazy match? The crazy match with the blood and Preston and the blood and the tables and all that? I did see it. I didn't write it down, Mark. I am sorry about that. That did not make my notes for some reason, but I think I saw there was that last week. I kind of forgot what the hell happened in the Jungle Hook segment, so I'll bring myself up to speed on that. Maybe that's where Jungle Boy's title shot came from. I don't know. I'm new. I don't know what to do. All right. Is that all I got there? No, Zach, my boy. Zach, good to see you, man. Appreciate that $5. Greg, Tomas, and I have been debating about the Money in the Bank winner, but Damian Priest winning the briefcase is a compelling option. Judgment Day implosion. I feel like, yeah, they're already planting the seeds for the Judgment Day implosion with Priest being like, I want to go do it on my own. I'm like, oh, shut up. But he had such a good performance. WWE likes him. Fans have been praising him. It would make sense to turn Damian Priest babyface. They're just doing it in such a generic way that so far I'm not loving. But yeah, if he wins the briefcase, then that could really tie into how all that comes to a head. Anybody else like Testosterone and AJ and Mike Rouse and David and anybody else chiming in with ideas and comments? Good to see you guys, and thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone for being here. And if you guys are into it, we're going to be back here in just about an hour, a little bit less than an hour, and we are going to be watching AEW Collision together. So hopefully you guys can join me. Enjoy your next hour break before you see my bald ass again. And if you don't join us for the watch along, I hope that you enjoy Collision, and hopefully it leaves us with a lot to talk about, because I'm excited to see CM Punk return after all that nonsense happened last year. And look at there. We're right on time. I wanted to make this about 90 minutes, and I think we did it. So you guys take care. I'll catch you real soon, and see you in a bit.